felony to bore the audience if you're a speaker. It becomes a felony to bore your children at the one event that's supposed to be the transmission. This is the transmission of the heritage because everything rides on the basic story. Everything. If Hashem didn't take us out of Mitzrayim, then He didn't give us the Torah. If He gives us the Torah, then what are we doing?
Very excited for you to meet Rabbi Benzion Klatzko. Rabbi Klatzko is one of the most well-known Makarvim in the country. He regularly hosts Shabbos meals, over 50 people, maybe over 100 people, takes groups all over the world, Brazil, Spain, Sao Paulo, Gibraltar, obviously Israel. He also runs a Jewish social platform called Shabbat.com, now in partnership with WhatsApp. So I thought to myself, if he runs Shabbos meals for more than 50 people without even blinking, he must have the seder down. Let's go find out. Thank you so much for having me in your home under the circumstances. I know it's kind of crazy.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
So I shared with you that we're traveling around the tri-state anyway, looking for amazing teachers and mentors who run the perfect Starim. And when I thought to myself of people who run unusual, difficult. I don't mean difficult like they're difficult like watching the Olympics. Is like watching your Shabbos table. I have no clue what your Pesach Seder table is like, and I'm curious what it is.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you for coming by. And Pesach it's coming up, and the Seder is a very, very big focus of our, not Pesach, but year. My kids, in one voice, say that Pesach is their favorite Yom Tov. And I think the reason for that is because we really focus on making it child-centric, but not kiddie. Child, but not kiddie. It's a little bit different. So we don't speak down to the kids, but we allow the kids to feel very involved. So one of the first things that we do in this Seder is a pre-Seder warm-up, which is that instead of me putting out grape juice and maybe some Kedem wine and
crackers,
takes, right? Instead, I bring all the kids to the wine store and I give them an allowance and they choose their own wines. And it's a tremendous buy-in. It's a major highlight to the point that we were once invited to spend Pesach in Cancun, which sounds lovely, but the kids all said, but what about our wine buying trip? Like, how do you compare Cancun to wine buying? But it's a really big highlight for them where they're going to drink 4 cups. And we try to get all the kids to, even the young kids could drink grape juice or something very, very light, but, or small cups, but they're going to drink the 4 cups. And they want to have their wines. So like the way we work it is the older kids get $25, the young kids get $15, and they have to divide that between 2 wines. They could add on their own.
Each kid needs to have 2 wines?
Each kid gets 2 bottles, 1 for each night.
Starting from what age?
Starting from, 8, 9, 10. I know the little kids are all choosing the blue bottle. The blue bottle, the Moscato, it's soda, it's delicious. But I want them to buy in.
They're choosing.
They're choosing.
That means everything.
And then the older kids, to show that they're more posh and sophisticated, they'll go for the older wines or the dry wines. And I warn them, you're not gonna like it, but they get it anyways. And that's the initial buy-in. And that thread winds its way through the actual Seder. So, for example, instead of just the father sitting at the head of the table having the 3 matzahs, every one of the kids get their own 3 matzahs. So every kid has an afikomen. Every kid breaks it during yachats. Every kid has a nice covering. And again, it allows the kids to feel like they're not observers and they're not an audience, but they're participants and it's their seder. And it just flips on its head that the idea of running a seder versus being part of a seder. So I would say that's number one. The next thing I would tell you is, and Chazal tell us this, not earlier but later. The Maggid Moshe is one Haggadah, the very famous Haggadah that speaks a lot about this. That Pesach is a time that has the possibility of causing stress. And whether, oh no, don't put that on that counter, or oh no, we found a piece of chametz and it wasn't put in the cupboard, what are we going to do now? Or oh no, we're not going to make chatzos, so let's hurry it up. And so the second thing that I would say is we work on being, as you say, ragua, or sababa, or chillax, right? Very, very chilled. There's no rush. There's this sense of tremendous calm.
Are you talking about in the weeks leading up to Pesach, or you mean specifically Seder night?
Well, absolutely in the weeks leading up. You're not allowed to cause an ema yasera babais. You're not allowed to cause a tremendous fear, much more so to prepare a mitzvah, much more so when it's something that has that ability to cause it, like a Yom Tov, and especially Seder night. So you have to tell yourself, yes, my kittel's white, it will not stay white. Yes, the tablecloth is white, it will not stay white. Yes, the matzahs are whole, but someone's going to lean on them with their elbow. Right? It's just the way it is, and embrace it. Embrace the chill of the night. There's no reason for stress, and the truth is, stress can ruin the seder for the kids. So everything you're trying to do and every minhag will be undone by tempers flaring and being raised. That's not how Hashem wants it. We know on Shabbos, we dafka specifically begin with Shalom Aleichem Malachei Hasharis, where the Malachim come and they see if there's a relaxed menucha atmosphere in the home. So Pesach, where you're inviting Malachim, of course, we have Malachim all over every time we do a mitzvah, but we're actually inviting Eliyahu Navi, right? Eliyahu Malach HaBris. We want to show Hashem and Eliyahu Navi and our children that mitzvahs are an occasion for happiness and not an occasion for stress. So I'm going to put that in because forget about the minhagim for a moment, but the approach is incredibly, incredibly important. So that
the whole mindset is just starting from a place of joy and excitement and
relaxation. Joy and relaxation.
And you kind of have to let go of the end point. You're not driving somewhere. Exactly. How do you balance letting go and, okay, this is going to get stained. Okay, I'm not going to get to do all my minhagim with you have a purpose tonight and you have an educational goal, a mitzvah goal.
Right. So the mitzvah goal will be accomplished if the classroom setting is one of joy. That's how we're going to accomplish it. To the point that while I used to, and I don't anymore, I don't have the ability, I allow my kids to do the afikomen al tanai, before chatzos, after chatzos, but I don't make any attempt to hit chatzos. No attempt at all. We rely on the shita, that you can eat afikomen all night, and the key is that there should be a Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, where we literally feel like we have traveled through. So we even had a point for many years to not have a clock in the dining room. Like, the time makes no difference. Let the kids have prepared. Let's hear the Divrei Torah. People have questions. Let's hear those questions. I have a good story. I'll share the story. Let's act it out. Let's enjoy. Tell you something that we do. We're jumping to the middle of the seder, but just within that framework. Of course, there's a minhag to give out treats for good questions, and we do that with the pistachios, and we've done it with the garlic sausage.
Pistachios, because you want to be like the Rambam?
Yeah, sort of, but also
anti-candy?
It doesn't stick in the hair.
Okay.
We used to give a bazooka gum. That was a no-go. But we do something else that keeps the children into it. And it's a minhag. One of my sisters married a Persian, and there you go.
Yeah.
We do that as well. We have the scallions, and the kids love it. The kids love it. They love it.
Sorry, just for anyone who doesn't know, the Persian minhag is to reenact, during Dayenu, right? To reenact the sense of slavery and bitterness by actually whipping each other with scallions, with long onions.
And when you sing Dayenu, Dayenu, because besides us telling Hashem Dayenu, the Jewish people told the Mitzrayim, Dayenu enough, while they were getting whipped. So we remember that with the whipping. But of course, it keeps the kids very, very entertained. And they can't wait to stay up for it. And there's just so many of these opportunities. Of course, many people in Child-centric today reenact the 10 plagues. Wonderful to do that. By the Avadim Hayinu, we dance around the table with the matzah around our shoulders. Avadim Hayinu, very, very epic. Some of the other things that we do for the children, when we open the door for Eliyahu Hanavi, so we don't just say Shvo Chamascha, but we have a beautiful tune that we use, and after that tune, that leads into another tune, and it could take a half an hour or longer, Shvo Chamascha, and it's very gorgeous. We open the door and we sing. It's taken from a Kalbach tune. Shvo Chamascha Elagayim Asher, and then from there.
You don't have to stop. I'm listening.
Yeah, it's Yamam Asher B'Shem Chalai Karo.
This is it for something else, no?
It's really B'Shem Hashem.
Yeah.
But that's the tune we use for that. And then we do an old Silverzheimer song. Remember that from the old days? And then it just evolves into really beautiful, gorgeous dancing. And the kids stay up for that. The Chaggadi, we do like many people, many families, where each of the kids becomes another one of the animals. After Chaggadia, the Seder doesn't end, but we have a whole series of other songs that are part of the German minhag that we have. My grandfather's German, and then we composed our own song afterwards. The key is to put your personal signature on the event. Chazal give us the framework. That's what they do. But the idea is not to only stick to the framework. In the same way that the idea wasn't to say Lechadodi, but sing it in the various tunes. And if you go to an Ashkenazi shul, they'll sing it one way. As far as shul, they'll sing it another way. Maybe you want to sing it your own way. We have the ability to take our personality and inject it into these minhagim and just make it mine, to be koneh.
So, how far off script do you veer? Meaning, you say every word? Is it about being Mosif? You add things that aren't in the Haggadah, or do you skip things, or do you reinterpret, or? So
we don't skip. We don't skip the Haggadah. The Haggadah is Tanaik in its origin, and I wouldn't skip. There is like there's 6 pages in the middle where it goes through all the drushes. The drushes are incredibly fascinating, and it was always my dream to actually take my time during the drushes just to where's the line?
It's connecting different psukim. It's an amazing thing to do, not Seder night.
Right. So I think the second Seder, we had a COVID Seder obviously last year. So the second Seder, we spent a little bit of time doing that. Not nearly what I wanted to, but you have to know, like Kenny Rogers says, gotta know when to hold them, when to fold them. There's a time that you gotta just spend your time, and there's a time that you're gonna lose everyone. And I would say the shortcoming, or almost the crime, the crime of every great speaker is to bore the audience. That's the crime. That's a felony. So
we're editing, don't worry.
Well, okay, great. I'll say that line again. It is a felony to bore the audience if you're a speaker, and it becomes a felony to bore your children at the one event that's supposed to be the transmission. This is the transmission of the heritage, because everything rides on the Pesach story. Everything. If Hashem didn't take us out of Mitzrayim, then He didn't give us the Torah. If He didn't give us the Torah, then what are we doing here? Right? Traditions only take you so far. Right? It doesn't. Okay, drinking 4 cups and eating, 3-4 kazesim of matzah and horseradish and more horseradish. There's a point. So if the kids are bored, and that also means if you have very, very little kids who are not going to get it, then put them to bed. They're not going to get it, and they'll detract from the kids who will get it. So
that's actually such a difficult question for me, is everything you're saying, all the examples you gave about singing and dancing and a lot of song and a lot of play acting. At a certain point, your kids, let alone you have guests who are older, they're looking for sort of a more intellectually stimulating, that's what's exciting. Tell me something new. I want to understand freedom. I want to dig into Cheres. What does it mean to be a Ben Chorin? How do you balance the conversation about what does it mean to be Ben Chorin with let's sing and dance?
Beautiful. So I think there are parts of the Haggadah that lend themselves to discussion, perhaps more than other parts. And if you're running a seder, you should be able to have your finger on that pulse. So, for example, Halach Ma'anya is a connection to Galus. It's a connection to inviting guests, the Chesed, and it's an intro. So there's what to talk about there. Manishtana, we use Manishtana to do different languages and make it fun again. We have somebody do it in English, of course, so we understand the question. But the real question is, what are we doing here? Manishtana, and then we point out some differences. But the 4 questions really are one question. What's going on? Avadim Ayinu lends itself. What does it mean to be a slave? What does that mean we would still be slaves? Don't kingdoms rise and fall and civilizations disappear? So why would we think the pharaohs would still be around and that we would still be slaves? And perhaps some mindset. The idea that we say Haggadah at night. So there's what to talk about. Olam Hazeh, Olam Haba. The idea that these great rabbis stayed up all night long, so that encourages us. Maybe we want to be like them. The idea that there are 4 sons. It's very, very deep ideas. So there are triggers, and you should be aware if you're going to run a seder. What sort of is the talking point, as it were, for each paragraph that you're going to say, and it doesn't mean that there's only one. There's an infinite amount, but you should have at least yours. That if you're running the seder, you should know what do I want to mention over here.
When you ask a question, do you already have the answer, or are you leaving it open?
So I usually have an approach. I have an approach. Usually it's a broad lesson I want to teach, whether it's a lesson about V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, or a lesson about anti-Semitism, a lesson about gratefulness to Hashem. There is an approach. I try not to get too esoteric and too into the gematrias, and I'm very lesson oriented with my approach. The kids I know are going to have the gematrias and the word plays and the drushes, and that's all a chelik of Torah. But I feel like my role is to be the teacher. So
when you're setting your lesson plan, is it the same lesson plan every year, or how much do you prepare in advance for the tochen?
So it is a general lesson plan. Like I know usually where I'm going to stop. Very often I'll think of something on the spot and I want to share it. Often it will also be connected to current events. I do like to give current events through the Torah's perspective. I think it's important. We're not living in a bubble, and some items in the news need translation through Torah eyes, through God view. So last year was COVID. There was an election going on. Sometimes there's tragedy in the community that has to be spoken about. Sometimes there's amazing things, and sometimes there are things that happen in our own personal lives that can be brought out through the Haggadah.
This struck me. This entire time we've been speaking, you keep referring to your kids, but I know, I remember your Shabbos tables having more than 50 people. Like on average Shabbos. I imagine your seder table looks something similar. So I'm just curious, how do the guests come into the picture? Are guests like children? Or they're treated differently? How do guests plug in?
So in a general year, we have one seder where we have just family. We started that maybe 4 years ago. The children expressed that desire, so one meal just family, and we farm out the guests, and other people have a chance to participate in our mitzvah. The second seder that we have, we will have the guests, and often we'll have guests that have children as well. As a matter of fact, we specifically invite people that have that are divorcees or widows, single parents, because we're very aware that it's hard enough to run a seder with a two-parent family, but a one-parent family, to create that ambiance and to create that homey, wonderful feeling, it's very difficult. So we will definitely pull those children front and center. I will always put my children next to me, that's my mitzvah, but next to them will be the other children, and often I'll become like another parent to their children. Of course, I'll have their parents participate, but I'll include them. After them come the guests who are newer to Judaism and may not have participated in a seder until now, so they'll be very excited to do so. And then we'll have people who have been to a seder before. They need to be at our seder, but they don't need to be so close to the front to see everything, because they pretty much know what's going on. And as I mentioned,
when you say next to, you don't mean metaphorically. You're talking about seating plans.
Yeah, seating plans. Yeah. And we'll scatter them throughout. We have a very large dining room, and it will. Amen.
Bigger than ever before.
Amen. That's our plan is double.
Oh wow.
And it was
the real plan.
In width, not length.
Okay.
Yeah. So and we include the guests very, very much. And as a matter of fact, we have a challenge. I learned this from my father, and I think it's a wonderful approach to the seder. That when it comes to the mitzvahs of the seder, like drinking the wine or leaning or eating the matzah or eating the maror, there are certain shiurim, certain measurements, both in terms of how much one eats and how long one has to eat it in. And we give a primer every year for how much to eat and how long to eat it in. And we try to encourage people to stick to the halacha. So don't be dainty about it. A little bit of wine, a little nibble on a matzah.
Yeah.
Both because that's the halacha, and because it actually it actually makes the seder more exciting, the buy-in, and people they enjoy detail. There's a beauty in detail. So it's not just a sort of a nebulous, fuzzy, okay, you're supposed to eat matzah. But no, you're supposed to eat shmura matzah. And it can't be eaten like this, but it must be eaten like that. And this is how much you have to eat. And then we do take out our watches at that point. We say, okay, here's how to do it. You want to do the more machmir time? You got 2 minutes to eat the matzah. How are you going to do it in 2 minutes? Well, it begins from the swallow, not from the bite. Well, then munch up a bunch and stick it in your cheek. So you got a whole cheek to look like a chipmunk. You got most of the matzah. It's very doable.
And people are excited.
They love it. We discover this video game creators.
Challenge people.
Challenge people. People love detail. I used to tell stories. The difference between a storyteller and someone telling a story is detail. So people like to know. I don't know what to do. Do I have to lean? How far do I lean? What do I lean on? And so we give lots of detail. And it just makes the seder fun.
You said before that you're just not in a rush, but you are in a rush because people are getting hungry. How do you balance?
So they're usually in the pistachios.
Okay.
Some take liberties with the carpas. You're not supposed to. And we do encourage, my wife actually serves a delicious meal before Yom Tov. It's just going to be a late night, and she puts out chicken and kugel. And it's just the way to go, because this way no one's in a rush.
Yeah, good deal. What's like the Klatzko family secret sauce that I didn't ask the right question to unlock?
It's a concept that works all year round, but much more so on Pesach, which is to really learn how to aim the spotlight at the guests and especially the children. And the kids should feel like they're the stars of the show. It's incredibly important. So it's a simple thing, but I've seen it the other way and I don't understand it. So, a lot of people do the 10 plagues, the makas, and then the father takes here's the cow, and the cow is dying, and here's the wild animals. Guess what? The kids have seen it every year. They want to be the ones to do it. So, Father, don't do it. Let them be the wild animals. That's how they are anyway. Right? Let them throw the ping pong balls by Baruch. Let them start. Let them start. Give your, with the afikomen, because everyone has 3 matzahs, so there's not much of a point in stealing the afikomen, even though the kids still steal the afikomen with us. But instead, we tell the kids, we can get you a present. You're going to get a present. You stay, get a present. We tell the guests, we made the song called El Shimurim, come to a YouTube video near you. And
post it at the bottom.
It's not out yet, but we tell the guests the famous Klatzko El Shimurim song. If you're up late enough, you'll be able to hear it. And we make a big deal. If you're up for El Shimurim, you can be up for El Shimurim. Now sometimes it's tough. We have actually had a few sedarim that ended by shachars. So we had a minute in the house. So we finished the seder and we just had brachas and daven and went to bed. Yeah.
That's amazing. Your daughter described your starim as epic Broadways.
My father's sedarim have been something like an interactive Broadway show.
Okay.
There's been a lot of performing and a lot of audience participation.
Yeah, well, a lot of what goes on is very musical. It's a lot of singing. The kids have beautiful voices, and they're not shy. And we very much look forward to hearing the music. It's going to be very epic this year. My son's back from Israel, and another son is coming in from Lakewood, and they all have really beautiful voices, and their harmonies it's gorgeous. And if this doesn't say nothing well, I believe in the power of the seder so strongly that last year I had COVID that I ended up in the hospital with, and I was so sick, and I ran both seder with COVID, and each one, it didn't last till the morning, but each one lasted until about 3:30. I was sick with fever and COVID, because I didn't want them to feel ripped off. There shouldn't be one seder that was not memorable. And I gave it my all. And I would say the secret sauce is to realize that there's no rush, that this is game time. This is what your kids are going to remember. This is going to give them their emunah. This is going to give them their Jewish pride. This is the time where they're open to hearing all the lessons that you have to say, from halacha to agada to the joy of Yiddishkeit, and don't shortchange them. Buy the best food. I bought bechers for all the children, beautiful cups. Don't give them plastic cups. Right? We spend so much on our kids' education.
Yeah.
So,
anything else? Like what?
I'll just throw in one machshava. So we say in Haggadah, Ilu Hakilanu Saman, V'Naslanu Sashabas Dayenu. That one is specifically in that order because the man reminded us about Shabbos because they didn't get the man on Shabbos. So if Hashem had given us the man, which was one tova for us, it fed us, but it wasn't the other tova because it didn't reveal Shabbos Dayenu. But the idea of Shabbos as a gift all by itself reminds us that Shabbos remains the Makar HaBracha even in the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Meaning, the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Hashem took us out, and that was wonderful. But the idea of Hashem taking us out only has validity because Hashem made the world in the first place. And it's Hashem who is the boss to decide who goes out and who stays, who inherits Eretz Yisrael and who gets kicked out. And that's why we say every Shabbos Kiddush, Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim. Actually, there's nothing on Shabbos that's Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim. Nothing. What do we do on Shabbos? Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim. How is Shabbos Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim? But they're intertwined. Shabbos, Hashem making the world, creating the world, and giving the Shabbos are intertwined. The same Hashem that runs the world, that owns the world, is the boss of the world and can decide, you I will take out and you I will bring into Eretz Yisrael. And that explains the Rashi at the very beginning of the Torah. Right? Why does the Torah begin with Bereshis? It should have begun with HaChodesh Hazeh, to remind us that the entire point, the entire permission that we have to come into Eretz Yisrael is because Hashem made the world. So we need Shabbos. It's that source of bracha. So bear in mind that bracha. Of course, we do have Shabbos this Pesach. It's going to be the last day of Chol HaMoed. You should enjoy it.
Amen.
Appreciate it, and just let it be a memory that our kids cherish and pass on to their kids.
This was awesome. Thank you.